Hey there folks, I'm here in Montgomery County, Maryland, just north of Washington, D.C., and I wanted to make a video on one of the coolest native trees in the D.C. area. Many people don't realize they were native. In fact, I didn't realize that they were native until like a month ago or something, until I finally looked at the range map and read about these insanely cool magnolia bogs. And so this is the Sweetbay Magnolia, relative to the southern magnolia, and the Latin name Magnolia virginiana, after Virginia. It's named for Virginia, all the way up actually to like Long Island in New York. So it's really interesting. These are like sort of a subtropical species, sort of not. Obviously Long Island is not subtropical, DC area not subtropical, but a lot of the range is in the subtropics. And they're such an interesting plant. Here in the DC area, as I was mentioning, they have these magnolia bogs. So unfortunately, a lot of them have been developed over. They're like, they're right near in the city and in the suburbs. A lot of them have been bulldozed one way or another. But what I really wanted to do is at some point this winter, before spring arrives and all the trees, the deciduous trees become green again, I wanted to go to one of these magnolia bogs and make a video of the Evergreen Magnolia virginiana standing out against the dull deciduous trees. So I thought that'd be so cool. And obviously, yeah, I mean, they're so cool because they're native broadleaf evergreens, and just seeing native evergreens in the wild here, native broadleaf evergreens, would be so cool. These magnolias, and they're native to the southern end of the DC area, up in Arlington, Virginia, which is just across the river from here. There's these really cool magnolia bogs. We have a bunch of rare ferns growing, and like there's like springs and seeps, and I think there's like fewer than like 24 of them in the entire world. And a number of them are here in the DC area. It's so cool. So you have these sweet magnolias for growing wild around these springs and seeps with these rare ferns. It's a really cool subtropical-like ecosystem. And the way that these trees work is people call them semi-evergreen or semi-deciduous, in that they're sort of locationally deciduous, if that makes sense. They depending on how cold the location they're growing is, they may or may not lose their leaves. So, for example, I was in Cincinnati, which is on 6A6B, over Christmas, which was obviously a while ago, and almost all of them, they pretty much all entirely lost their leaves, or just a few brown leaves hanging on. But because it's cold enough, they're deciduous. But here in the DC area, it stays warmer, and once you go further south than here, especially, I mean, this entire area, they stay evergreen throughout the winter. And sometimes in a really unsheltered, really exposed location, you will see some that have lost some leaves just by virtue of them being blown off. But I mean, they will almost always retain some leaves, and usually they retain like a full entire crown of leaves. And they're just so cool, and they got these really cool southern magnolia like leaves. They're smaller than southern magnolia, the whole tree is, and the leaves are also smaller. They're thinner, and they have this really cool silvery undersides, very distinct, very bright silvery undersides. Yeah, I mean, just it's so crazy. These really subtropical and even tropical looking trees are native to the DC area, and just such a cool asset that our city has, especially in the southern end of the metropolitan area, the southern end of DC proper. Even there are these magnolia bogs growing, and elsewhere in the DC area, just so cool. Just want to share that with you because this is a lesser known and lesser appreciated magnolia. Southern magnolias are everywhere. There's one right there, giant one. Another one right there, just gorgeous. I mean, these trees are massive, and they are, rightly appreciated as such. They're so incredible. But, there's lots of other magnolia species. There's lots of deciduous magnolias, but not only are there other evergreen species, but there's other evergreen species. And this one, unlike southern magnolia, is actually native here, and just such a cool species. And they actually do hybridize, and I didn't even realize that. And there's a beautiful hybrid growing next to the visitor center that I made a video of at the National Arboretum. It looks a lot like southern magnolia, but with, I guess, a little thinner leaves, and just gorgeous. And I bet there's lots of other hybrids in the DC area that I just mistook for southern magnolia that are actually hybrids. So yeah, they do hybridize. That's super cool. And when they're in flower, again, the flowers are just so beautiful smelling, and just really cool. Just want to share that with you. So yeah, semi-evergreen, semi-deciduous trees that are evergreen in the DC area. So if you're in, I'd say, a zone 7 or warmer, they will retain pretty much all their leaves. And these ones are pretty, you can see they're, right exposed here along the highway to all this, exhaust and wind and stuff. So these ones have gotten a bit beat up by the wind, but especially some growing up against buildings and stuff, they can grow huge and retain this massive green crown of leaves. And in winter, that just looks so beautiful. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. Like and subscribe if you enjoy. Just want to share with you what is probably my favorite native plant. One of my favorite native plants in the DC area, besides like a Apache Shimafusa, Eastern prickly pear. One of my favorite, probably my favorite native tree to the Washington DC area, Sweetbay Magnolia from Magnolia virginiana, and it is evergreen here. Take care, folks. Enjoy.